All right, so you are looking live at Geneva, Switzerland, where we are looking for Marine One to touch down there. It looks like the pool just arrived a short time ago. This after hearing from President Trump for over an hour just a short time ago, taking a lot of questions from reporters as we begin to get the details on the exact wording of the Memorandum of Understanding. Let's bring in Fox News contributor and host of Sunday Night in America, Trey Gowdy. Trey, great to get your thoughts in this moment. Please do share with us where you are with all of this as we get a better understanding at the terms of this deal.
Sandra, it's wonderful to see you. I was a little surprised, honestly. I mean, we literally had our foot on their throat, militarily, economically, and I read this MOU, if you will, I guess about 48 hours ago, and I didn't believe it. I thought somebody was spoofing me when I saw it, because I see what we're giving up, and then I see this word downblend, and I'm not the smartest guy in the world, Sandra, but if you can downblend, then you can upblend. And how long would it take Iran to upblend? Because Donald Trump is going to be gone in January 2029, but the so-called supreme leader is not going to be. So here's my question for my fellow citizens. Do you really think Iran has abandoned its nuclear ambition? Do you believe them? What do you think they're going to do with the $300 billion? What are they going to do with the oil revenue? You think they're going to build schools? You think they're going to build, like, they're going to make women's life better? Or are they going to continue to target America and Israel? I happen to think the latter.
So it was vague, the details over, how Iran will be monitored and what determines good behavior and what sort of compliance will be in place, Trey. Seems to be there's still a lot of questions there. Not to say it's impossible, but details would surely reassure the American public of this deal.
Well, I'll tell you two things that do not reassure the American people, and that is some international atomic nuclear agency, which people have zero confidence in. And the only thing we have less confidence in would be the United Nations. So I saw both of those entities in this MOU. Look, as you know, Sandra, I was a country prosecutor. I rely on other people for expertise. I've heard from the president. I have tremendous respect for him. I'd like to hear from Marco Rubio, and I'd really like to hear from John Lee Ratcliffe on the intelligence of whether or not Iran thinks they got the better of us. Because I guarantee we got the best intelligence community in the world. I'd be really interested in what their reaction to this MOU is. It might be, I can't believe we got this, because we were losing. I mean, we had them, Sandra. We had an economic stranglehold on that country. So you go back to the status quo ante before the blockade, how are we better off? Well, I mean, what did we get?
Well, why do you think the terms of the deal have been agreed to then? We've been told that President Trump would not agree to any deal unless it was a great deal.
Well, I hate to be cynical, you know that. Don't we have midterms coming up? Are gas prices high? Yeah. I mean, I hate to be cynical, but I don't think it's a national security document, but I reserve the right to be corrected. I need to hear from Marco, and I need to hear from John Lee, and if they both tell me that this is as good as it gets, then I'll go back to being a country prosecutor.
Yeah. I mean, the economic pain that was inflicted on Iran throughout this, I mean, you're talking about the hundreds of billions, the hit that they have taken from the freezing of assets, the sanctions that have been put on them and their oil transfers, and as we do look live there at Marine One and the possibility of seeing the president there shortly. You then look at what they're estimating, and this was per this phone call John and I were on a short time ago, that the benefit to Iran is in the single-digit billions. You wonder how that can be if we unfreeze assets and lift sanctions and they're able to transfer oil again. I mean, they've got obvious access to a lot of oil, Trey, and that translates to a lot of money, potentially many billions.
They're better off than they were before the hostilities began. And that should not be the consequence of war. When you lose a war, I mean, think about it, Sandra. We went into Iran and rescued a downed pilot. We had total control over that country. We were winning militarily and economically. And when you are in that position, you negotiate from strength. You don't give people money. You don't give them access. What are they going to do with the money, Sandra? I mean, you've been following this issue for a long time. Despite your youthful appearance, you know that Iran is going to use this for nefarious purposes. We all know that. The regime has not changed. They're just richer.
Yeah, we are looking live at the president arriving there, waving to those greeting him as he arrives in Geneva. We heard quite a bit from him just a short time ago, Trey, and he spent his time reassuring reporters, including our own Peter Doocy, that the United States will not be directly paying Iran. And this is where the U.S. and the U.S. officials that we have heard from have insisted that there will be no transfer of money. But I don't know how you look at the unfreezing of those assets as not a transfer of money, Trey.
I think the legal explanation would be that was their money and we're just allowing you access to it again. Look, I have not talked to the president about this, but my guess is when he rolls up his sleeves and he gets back, and he's been keeping a very hectic schedule, and he looks at this and he talks to Marco and he talks to John Lee, I'll be surprised if he does not have a different reaction. He likes to win, and we were winning. Does this agreement reflect a victorious country? I think that's the question he's going to ask. And I'll be surprised if he concludes that this is the best we can do.
Yeah, I'm bringing John now as we watch these pictures live. President Trump waving as he is now on board Air Force One. John?
Yep, I headed to Paris and the Palace of Versailles for a dinner with Emmanuel Macron. I was just reading through the transcript of the call that you and I had this morning, Sandra, because it includes not just the points of the 14-point memorandum of understanding, but some colored commentary on it as well. And I wanted to run this by Trey because the memorandum of understanding calls for, at a minimum, the destruction of the highly enriched uranium at 60% by downblending. That's at a minimum, which means that may be all that Iran does. They may have to do more. And this would be under the watchful eye of the IAEA, and we know how effective they were when they were allowed into Iran. Iran was doing all sorts of secret things right under the IAEA's nose. Are you comfortable with the 60% uranium being, quote, destroyed by downblending when, as Hugh Hewitt remarked earlier, if you can downblend something, you can upblend it again?
Yeah, and no, Professor Hewitt is exactly right. I will be happy when they have no uranium whatsoever. That's when I'll be happy. But they're downblending it, and to further Professor Hewitt's point, the so-called supreme leader ain't going anywhere. Donald Trump, the longest he can serve is January in 2029, and God only knows what comes after that. So if you don't think Iran is sitting there saying, well, let's just wait him out. Let's wait him out. Because they can and we can't. This is his chance to put a mark on history, to do something that echoes through the halls of history, John, to finally say, Iran, you are never going to threaten that region again. Downblending means you can upblend. It does not mean it's obliterated. It doesn't mean it's gone. It just means we're going to save it for later on.
Just sort of reading through the actual wording of the memorandum, when talking about that $300 billion construction fund, which is indeed in the memorandum. It was read out loud to us, and as I look at it in print, I look back at, and I'm reminded what we heard from those U.S. officials about that, because the reference to it was, let's add some commentary here, because this is perhaps the most controversial point of the MOU. The distinction was made that this does not require us to do anything. We never exchange a cent of money to the Iranians to ever contribute money to this reconstruction fund. What it says that if we get to a final deal and if the Iranians behave, we will permit the sanctions relief that would allow, for example, them to build the power plant that they've discussed in Iran. But it's still a reconstruction fund that is written into the memorandum, Trey, a $300 billion one.
Yeah.
I mean, are you placated by the fact that the money would come from the Qataris or from Saudi Arabia and not us? It's still going to be used for weapons, and I'm pretty sure that the lifting of economic sanctions takes place immediately, and I'm pretty sure that the removal of the blockade takes place immediately. So look, Iran is a richer country as a result of this MOU. And they lost the war. That's the part I can't get my head around. They lost. And they're coming out of this richer with this little phrase called downblend, which they're just going to wait him out and hope for a president that is focused on something else, and then they're going to upblend again. This is never going to change until you remove it all or remove the regime.
Yeah,
those are the two options.
Just to put a little more meat on the bones of a couple of things that you talked about in terms of the removal of U.S. forces. Paragraph 4 of the MOU says the United States will fully end the naval blockade within 30 days. So that means that the forces will remain there for at least a month. Then it goes on to say the United States of America further undertakes to remove its forces from the proximity of the Islamic Republic of Iran within 30 days after the final deal. But what that actually means is that the United States will go back to its original force posture, not that it's going to remove all forces from the Middle East or the Persian Gulf region, just from the immediate area of Iran, but it'll go back to what it was. Now, on the removal of sanctions, paragraph 11 says the United States of America undertakes to make fully available for use the frozen or restricted funds and assets of the Islamic Republic of Iran upon the implementation of this memorandum of understanding. We are told by a senior administration official that that process will actually happen during and after the negotiations for a final deal. The sanctions on oil sales will be lifted immediately. And then this idea of the Strait of Hormuz will be open to free, unfettered transit for 60 days, and 60 days only, it says. And then there's got to be discussions between Iran, Oman, Gulf states like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates about what they're going to do in terms of administration, which does not rule out fees for transiting the Straits of Hormuz. You could put it down to, well, we need this to keep the shoreline beautiful or to provide security or whatever. It may not end up in that because the senior administration official who walked us through that said that the Gulf states would never agree to any kind of fees being placed on transit of the Strait. Thought to you, Trey?
Yeah, I don't believe them, John. There's going to be a toll. And this is why people hate lawyers. Within 30 days doesn't mean 30 days. It could mean tomorrow. It means at the end of the 30 days, we got to be gone. But the chances are we're going to be gone sooner than that. That's what the word within means. Here's the other paragraph I didn't see. Is there a fund for prosthetics for all the American soldiers that Iran blew their arms and legs off? Is there any kind of fund for the men and women that were injured trying to stop Iran from attacking Israel weeks ago? I mean, how about the guys and gals that bled and died on our country's behalf? Well, where's their fund? I didn't see that in MOU.
All right. Trey Gowdy joining us on this breaking news. Really, thank you very much, Trey, for joining us.
And for the record, I didn't see that. I didn't see that either, Trey.
No.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.